Welcome to the Totally Insensitive podcast, where we give our real takes on the entertainment industry, politics, pop culture, and more.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Listen, my whole family loves it, man.
They're the first thing I turn on.
Think you can handle it?
Yep, I'm ready.
Well, shut up and sit down, because the show starts right now.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Totally Insensitive podcast on the Insensitive Network. I'm your host, Matt. With me this week, Jack, Kudu. What's going on, Kudu?
Hi, everybody. Lovely to be here. Thanks for having me.
So this week I decided I was going to do like a history kind of episode. So I've got some facts and bullet points from the 1620s, 1720s, 1820s, the Roaring 20s, and of course the 2020s.
Excellent, wonderful.
So I'm going to riddle off some points from each one. I have about 3 or 4 for each one. And Kudu, feel free to chime in with anything you know more than whatever I say. So
yeah, of course, I'll try my best.
So I don't know if you know anything about this first one, but there was a fair in Turkey in May of 1620, and the fair had the very first merry-go-round.
The first ever merry-go-round, you say?
So
like
yeah.
Was it like the first carnival, or no? It was just the first merry-go-round.
It said fair, but does a merry-go-round make it a carnival?
Huh. I don't know, because I was recently in New York, and in Central Park they got a merry-go-round, but that is far from
a carnival.
Fair, so I don't know. I mean, I guess if you count New York City itself as that, but I don't know.
I'd say New York City is more of a zoo than a carnival.
It's more of a disappointment, and I guess, I don't know.
Yeah. So that same year too, another carnival. No, I'm just kidding. The Mayflower left for the Americas.
Oh, okay. So that makes a little more sense then. Well, not sense, but at least it helps a little with timing, I guess.
Yeah, it's around that time frame. People on boats that take months to get across the ocean.
Oh my God, so many years. Like, what was it? I think like 3 months it would usually take to get from Europe, I would imagine, to the Americas, or what they thought was India.
Yeah.
But that was like crazy. And like people would die on the ships because they were just horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the ships that was supposed to go with the Mayflower had to turn around because it just kept fucking leaking. Yeah,
there was like shit like that wrong all the time on the ships. Like,
yeah,
always problems. Or like, oh my God, the disease was the worst part, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, one person gets sick and then everybody's sick.
Yeah, it's like there's a floating dorm, but there's no freshmen.
You're right.
All right.
So also in the 1620s, the Polish-Ottoman War. I don't know much about that.
I mean, I know the Poles aren't really good at, fighting. And then I know that the Ottomans were, a pretty solid empire. Like, they were nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Their empire was pretty big, too.
I think the Ottomans at one point were essentially like, I don't know. I wouldn't say the U.S. and the Olympic basketball, but maybe like Australia. Like, they're always a solid second. Because Rome was obviously,
right.
The U.S. just steamrolling. So that's the comparison I would make.
Huh. Well, it's more than I know.
Yeah. Okay.
The towards the end of the 1620s, the Native Americans massacred 500 people at Jamestown.
Well, I mean, actually, okay, so I listened to a podcast. It's like called the Myths and Legends podcast earlier, and it kind of talked about this a little bit, like through the legend, or not legend. I don't know what you want to call it. The quite possible, very real story of Pocahontas that we don't know how much is true.
How she was like a 12-year-old girl.
Yeah, because all the accounts were like written by Jon Snow, and like they went through the government, so the government could have like very heavily like censored what was very put out and what was destroyed or hidden from the public.
Huh.
But like, yeah, it was crazy. But basically, like the Native Americans were in a very like big war, and they initially saw the ships coming up, to start the colony. And when Jamestown settled initially, they weren't like horrible people. Like they were just trying to kind of start there, and like that was their role. Their like big things, like their top 3 things that they were supposed to do, was establish a colony, wait for others, and like send word back to the king or the mainland, and then establish good relations with the natives. So they were actually not supposed to like start not corrupting, but they weren't supposed to start fighting and everything. They were actually supposed to like go there and be nice people and like establish good relations, kind of trade with them. But the natives kind of greeted them initially with a bit of a very defensive, like attacking them, because the Spaniards had came back like however many years earlier and actually like did how the Spanish kind of fucked up like the ancient Mayans and Aztecs, like that kind of worked its way up into the Americas as well. So the English were actually really trying to be nice, but because the Spaniards already came and fucked everything up with the natives were already assholes to the English, and that's how like that kind of was starting to get effed in a little bit already. So it could have been easier avoided if they just kept with like the good diplomatic.
So it just goes to show that the Spanish are just no good.
Yeah, fuck the Spanish, dude.
And the French.
Yeah, the French. I mean, I feel like the French got it in World War I and II. They're like they got their rounds.
Yeah. So that's all I had for the 1620s. So it was a year of discovery and death.
Mm-hmm.
A decade of discovery and death.
I mean, there was a carnival, and then there was a lot of problems.
Yeah. So we're going to jump a couple years to the 1720s. Just a couple years.
Okay, nothing crazy.
The 1720s started with the Great Plague of Marseille, which was one of the last bubonic plagues in Europe.
Oh, Christ. Well, that's a great way to start it off.
Great start. And then it was followed by 3 wars. The Russo-Persian War, the Anglo-Spanish War, and the Russo-Turkish War.
All right, so that just sounds like maybe the 2020s this year. Hopefully, it'll be better than the last 2 sets of 20s we talked about. Because so far, they have not been good. I mean, we're starting this one off possibly with another war. So. Another world war.
Yeah, who knows? But at least the Russians kind of are involved. Huh.
Yeah, the Russians.
You right over there?
1 sec. All right, sorry about that. I dropped my phone, guys. Sorry, detected my microphone.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah, we're having big technical difficulties over here. No, we're all back. We're back in business. Got the cell tower up. We're good.
Jeez. Yeah, so,
Alrighty.
Yeah. 3 wars, 2 of them are Russian.
3 wars, 2 Russian. Just like now, Russians causing problems all the time.
Poking sticks. Poking flames with sticks. Poking butts with sticks.
Dude, the Russians never had, like... The Russians are never really been in a great position. They've always been powerful, but economically, they've always been kind of effed.
Oh, yeah. I think that's why they try and start so many wars.
Yeah, because they started off with, like, a monarchy, and then they just went from a monarchy to another fancy word for a monarchy.
A czar?
Yeah, well, they did the czar because, like, that was, like, the king. But then, I don't know, what was it? Like, around, like, the Cold War area is when, like, they were really, big on communism. And I think communism, kind of, and how Russia was doing it and is doing it, is a lot like, you got the one guy that's the head of the power, aka the monarch, while everyone else is still, like, equal. So, it's like the economics have, like, pushed the war, I'd say, a lot of the time.
Interesting.
Because, yeah. All right.
Well, that's all I had for 1720s, so we're going to jump ahead to the 1820s.
Well, the 1720s kind of sucked.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The 1820s gets a lot better. So it starts off with the discovery of Antarctica.
All right, that's a lot better. That's a step in the right direction.
Right? Now, I don't know how for like 200... longer than that, people have been sailing. So I don't know how no one ever discovered it. But whatever.
Maybe it was like the first like official recording, incredible recording. Because I'm sure there's like, I forgot what the names of the like tribes in like Antarctica and all that are, but they were definitely there before.
Oh
the
yeah.
1820s. So it was just like probably the first documentation, or someone was like, "Oh, let's just keep going up, I guess." And they find it, so that way we can melt.
You mean
it.
down?
Down? Yes, you're right. Oh my goodness.
I mean, you could keep going up until you're going
No.
down, then you have to keep going down.
Yeah. So I guess to be fair, eventually I wasn't flawed. It was right to some extent. But you're right. You're right.
But you can keep going east and never have to go west.
All right. Well, that's enough, Eddie.
Oh boy. So also in the 1820s, the first modern police service was founded in London.
In London?
Yeah.
That makes sense. London, like, I feel like that's like a big origin of a lot of places,
Yeah, I think
Like
a
where it
lot of like
started?
infrastructure stuff.
Yeah. Because, like, Africa had first people, but, like, Africa has, like, no resources. So it would make sense that, like, England would be the next area because they have a lot of resources, but they're also right by Africa.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
So that makes mathematics sense,
I think they had one of the first like fire departments too.
And London?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because London was, like, not London was the first city, but, like, in Europe, it was, like, feudal society was, like, the first area where, like, they started having, like, the big kind of cities develop.
Right.
Like, all the way back in, like, the medieval, though. Like, even before medieval. Like, that was, like, way, way, way. So, like, early man.
Right.
But, that's wild.
Yeah.
All the way. And then 1820s now, coming back. London makes the police. Do some shooting over there.
Yeah, now they don't have any guns.
Yeah, now they have nothing.
Yeah.
They probably didn't use them back then either, smacking people with their clubs.
That's true. But the rest of the 1820s were not very eventful. A couple more like really small wars. I think there was like the Mexican-Texan War.
Oh, that's wild.
And then the invention of the Colt revolver, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, nice classic American rifle. Not rifle.
Rifle? Yeah.
I don't know. It's got, yeah. Classic
If you
American.
put like a scope on it.
You could put a scope and then like maybe some PVC pipe you tape to the end of the barrel.
Yeah. That's some Fallout
nice,
stuff.
It's a barrel right there, yeah. 12 bottle caps for that bad boy.
Yeah. Pipe gun.
Yep. PVC revolver.
Oh.
All right, but you said that's it for the 1820s.
Yeah, and then so we're gonna fast forward to the 1920s, the Roaring 20s, if you will.
The best 20s.
But I'm gonna predecess it with a few things. So
All right.
we all know what happened in the early 1900s with the Titanic,
Mm-hmm.
and we all know how World War I started
Friends.
with the with the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand.
Franz Ferdinand.
Franz Ferdinand. So
What a man.
do you know the story of how he was actually assassinated?
I didn't know there was like a... So I can say what I thought. I thought that he was Austro-Hungary, right? He was the leader of the king. So
he wasn't the king. He was like a prince, essentially.
Yeah, that's what I meant. But he was like, one of the leading monarchy. And he was kind of just like, they were doing like a parade or some sort of celebration, I think, right?
Yeah.
And he was like it was kind of like a JFK kind of thing.
Pretty much.
Yeah, because it was like, then someone shot him from like a window or something. I think wasn't it like an Ottoman or something like that?
So, yeah, you're really close. So,
yeah,
there's another podcast that broke this down. It's Dan Carlin's Hardcore History.
Yeah,
and he went into depth about this. And so essentially, there were like Ottomans, and then there were like the Hungarians, the Austro-Hungarians, and they're all living together or whatever. And there's these political parties that just really hate each other, and the Ottomans plotted to like kill Archduke Ferdinand. Yeah. And so yeah, it was the same. There was like this motorcade of a parade, and Ferdinand was in the parade, and there were, I want to say it was like 8 or 9 dudes from this group that were plotting to kill Archduke Ferdinand. And the one guy tosses a hand grenade at Franz Ferdinand's car, completely misses, and it rolls into the crowd and blows up and kills like 15 people and injures like 30 or whatever.
Oh
So
my goodness.
Franz Ferdinand's car guns it and takes him home, but he's he's a really good dude. Like, he's an awesome leader. So he's like, I want to go to the hospital. I want to see all these people. I want to go talk to them. So his motorcade's taken on. Well, at this point, it's not a motorcade. It's just him and his wife, and then like their guard driving this car. And so they're driving through the streets of the town, and they go to turn down an alley, and they get blocked. So they're going to back up. They start to back up, and one of the guys from the original plot was like pissed, and he was upset that they failed. So he goes to this shop, and he's having a sandwich or whatever, and he finishes the sandwich, and he walks out of the shop, and lo and behold, who's like 15 feet from him in their car backing up in this alley?
Yeah.
Franz Ferdinand. So the guy, Gavrilo Princip, pops him in the head, and then boom, World War I.
Oh my god! I had no idea that was a story like that. He didn't, because I thought he got killed, like shot in the motorcade while he was on the actual parade still, or going down the street.
No,
and
I always thought that too until I listened to that podcast.
That's crazy. It's probably just when they're teaching history in school. They're like, it's too much small stuff. We'll just say this happened.
But like
that's crazy.
It's nuts. Yeah, because like they failed killing him, and then the dude just happens to go to a shop, and Franz Ferdinand just happens to be in that alley. At that time, what are the
odds that like he decides to go to that sandwich shop at that time because they fucked up, and then Franz Ferdinand happens to be trying to go to the hospital and they make a wrong turn, like down that wrong turn. There's so many crazy odds.
It's wild.
And that World War I happens, like you said, and
then World War I ends.
Everyone starts to industrial revolution. Then the industrial revolution starts for like everybody.
Oh yeah, pretty much, yeah. Then
because of World War I,
Hitler comes into power. And then Prohibition starts. And then Mussolini rises to power in Italy. And then the 1920s end with the Great Depression.
Yeah, 1920s, they started off strong.
Oh,
Strong, but they didn't finish so well.
No.
Yeah, but Prohibition, well, I don't know. I think the 20s was like such a cool time, though, in like in American history. Like Great Gatsby, the book was like super... like a great book to read about it. It like is actually a lot of what the time was like, just crazy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, for America, it was it wasn't as bad as some of these other places. Till the end,
it wasn't bad like that. But there was like a lot of like political unrest, but like a lot of improvement, like industrially.
Yeah, I want to say 1920s too. The assembly line started.
Yeah,
Ford's assembly line.
Yeah. Well, because the gangsters were like the big prohibition thing, and like that was like the big kind of focus.
Yeah,
because
suicide doors and Tommy guns.
Oh, the good old days. What was it? What was that? Bonnie and Clyde, right?
Yeah. Robbing banks and shooting cops.
A month or two ago, when I was in one of my classes, because I want to know kind of the story a little better, and I was surprised to find out like. I knew that they were like a boyfriend girlfriend duo, but like I didn't know they got like gunned down. Like that's how they died.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I didn't know they were like they were just like having their last stand outside their car on like the side of the road, because it was kind of an interesting story. I think I'd have to look it up real quick, but I'm pretty sure that like they just did a big thing, and then their car broke down on the side of the road. And then the police caught up to them and found them, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is Bonnie and Clyde!" And they're broken down car on the side of the road, and then they had their shootout there.
Yeah,
I think it was something weird, like a car breakdown that like got them caught. It wasn't like just they got found one night or something like that, but it was like unfortunate events again.
Yeah,
I guess that's history. Just a lot of unfortunate events.
It's when you like think about all of this together, it is really just a lot of unfortunate stuff. Minus the merry-go-round, that was a pretty good start, right?
Yeah, I think the carousel was the hottest way to start off. What we started in the 1620s?
1620s.
16, right? Yeah, so
and then
like 400 years ago, we started off strong, and then it got right into wars and everything. Bubonic plague and another one have it.
Yeah.
So we got merry-go-rounds, maybe a touch of prohibition, which depending on who you are, that is a positive. And I don't know. But also, I'd like to say what I think is that history sometimes focuses a lot on the negative. So there's always good things that happen. So let's not forget about that class.
Yeah, and I've sat there with friends before and looked at like all the inventions of like some decades, and that's all the positive stuff. All these
there's always crazy
inventions and discoveries.
Yeah, crazy inventions. Like even if you think about it, like we went from the 1620s where they were on like floating dormitories that took like 3 months to cross the ocean to where people were taking luxury cruises on the Titanic, even though it sank. I mean, there were other ones that didn't. So let's remember that.
I actually recently heard I'll call it a conspiracy theory just because I haven't looked into it, but that the ship that they said was the Titanic was actually its sister ship because they didn't finish the Titanic itself on time.
Maybe.
And that they just...
I've never heard of a conspiracy theory like that, but that would make sense.
I recently heard it, and I questioned it immediately, but I kind of want to look into it because it would make sense, and it would be kind of interesting.
Well, because there's always, like, speculation, because it was always, like, really close to finishing, and they're like, wow, it was crazy how fast they could get it out and get it on the water and ready for sailing. But also, where would you hide, like... If that was the sister ship, then where would they have hidden the Titanic? Unless they would have just finished the Titanic and then played the Titanic off as the sister ship and just switched them.
That could be. I'm not sure.
Because otherwise, it'd be hard to like hide the ship.
Yeah, it's hard to hide a giant ship.
Especially like the world's biggest ship at the time period.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you're going to find it. So that would make sense if they did manage to pull off the old switcheroo, but...
Yeah. And the funny part is, it actually had more lifeboats on it than were required at the time.
The Titanic or the one that sank?
The one that sank.
Yeah. Okay, I was sure. But yeah. I didn't know that. But it didn't even have enough, which makes you really think about how shitty everything was.
Pretty much.
What was it? I think it was like in the 30s that they started to do all the big reforms on everything because that's when they started to create all the new programs to get out of the Great Depression. That's when everyone realized, because the Depression ended like, I don't know, I should probably know. I didn't know when the Great Depression ended. Because I would want to say...
a few years before World War II.
Okay, so like
1938, 39, 39, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because World War II was 41, 42.
Yeah.
So 38, 39 makes sense. I wanted to say 41 for the Great Depression, but that seems late. But yeah, like... The 30s was like when they got us out of the Great Depression, the late 30s. So
yeah, it was only
started
10 years.
10 years?
9 or 10 years.
Yeah, it wasn't horrible, but I mean, that's 10 years, no workers' rights.
Yeah,
or
no
10
workers,
more years, I guess.
No food, no money.
Because when I was in New York with my sister, I saw where the Triangle Factory fire was, the Shirtwaist Fire. Because that was like the fire that got everything going for like workers' rights. And they were like, well... The doors were locked and there were no fire escapes and there was only one elevator and like there was like oil and fire and rags, like dry rags everywhere, like perfect for the fire, which ended up happening. So it was really cool to like be in New York and kind of be on the corner of like the building where that all happened.
Yeah.
So yeah,
history.
Wild. History's a mystery.
Yep.
But not really because it's in the textbooks and shit. But I know it rhymed. It was alliteration.
Yeah.
Any 2020 facts?
I wouldn't say facts, just some observances. So, you know, there's all the stuff that just happened with Iran and them shooting down a civilian plane, and we're gonna see how that.
I heard about that. That was like what they had, like 17 or something Canadians on that plane, right?
Yeah, it was like 173 passengers, and maybe 20 of them were Canadians.
Yeah, that sounds like Iran's just going for anyone. Because I feel like Iran's smart enough to understand that if they started a war with a lot of the other superpowers, that they wouldn't have the greatest chance.
Oh yeah, they'd get obliterated.
So I think they're just like, we'll just be little nuisances in our own neck of the woods, and then, you know, maybe do apologies or diplomatic stuff a little bit after we've. Because I don't think that they're going to go to war. I've never been scared about World War III.
They launched was it 11 or 13 missiles?
I didn't hear about that, but
Oh, they launched 11 or 13 missiles at two American-run bases in Iraq.
Oh, I actually did hear about that. I just didn't know how many missiles it was. But yeah, I heard about like only missiles at the bases.
Only like 2 hit the base. Most of them failed during flight. So
yeah, they probably don't have the best missiles, and they also. I know the U.S. has pretty good like defenses in general as well, like anti-air and anti-missile defenses. So, like especially on our home turf, like the coastlines are lined. So I'm not too worried about anything. But yeah, 20s started off. I don't know, mix. We got Baby Yoda, but then we also got Iran. So give and take, a little
riots in Hong Kong and fires in Australia.
Oh yeah, the Australian forest fires. How can I forget? The fires were tough. Hong Kong, they're always doing their thing over there. I feel like I think the riots have been going on for a while because they've had
like
a lot.
6 months, yeah.
Yeah, they've had a lot going on, so we can maybe count that as a 2019 problem and just say it had to spill over.
Yeah,
clean up the track record. The 2020.
That's from the last decade.
But
I'm not going to worry.
2020's coming hard at us.
Oh yeah,
but don't worry, we'll make it through, guys. Everybody. We're all okay.
There's more World War III memes than anything right now, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of really good ones. I love the ones where I don't know. I forget the most. I don't know. There's so many good ones, but I didn't like. I was thinking about one recently that I saw. It was like a guy, and he was sitting on a laptop, and he was like in a full the camouflage and everything. Mm-hmm. But I forget what it actually said, but it was so funny. I wish I could find it. So that's what I was doing now. That's why I couldn't speak really well. I'm not the greatest at multitasking.
It's okay. I totally understand.
I'm new to this. I'm not used to being famous yet. But
famous. Okay.
Venmo is no. Well. Do we have any more fun facts we're thinking about?
No, that was all I had, Jack. That was
those are some good ones. I like that. I really like the like Franz Ferdinand. Like if I ever like start talking to kids about World War II when I'm teaching or anything, I would definitely like to bring that in and have that be like a little side story. You should
listen to that podcast from Dan Carlin. His Hardcore History. Carlin. It's like
Hardcore History. Is it like because the Myths and Legends one is really cool because it's got some historical aspects, but it's all like different kinds of myths and legends throughout like different kinds of like pantheons and like religions. Like they did like they do Roman, they do Greek, they do Nordic, they do like all crazy stuff. Like Japanese sometimes they do African like legends and stuff. Like it's really cool. So,
that's kind of
loosely tied to history. So it's like I would assume yours is just like way more historical, but like neat stuff about it that we wouldn't know.
It's basically like stuff they just don't teach you in the history books, and it's good.
Oh, I'm sure I would love that. Yeah, then I'll definitely have to check that out.
Good. Well, thanks, Jack, and
welcome. Yeah, it was
a good history lesson.
Thanks, everybody. Well, hopefully, all the 20s in the past, this one can be the best setup. So
yeah,
10 years. Well,
hopefully there's no plague. We'll see how it goes.
Not too many wars. Fingers crossed. Let's do it, baby.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you next week. See ya.
Bye.
Hi, guys. I just wanted to take a second to talk about the Bare Naked Truth podcast, our featured podcast of the month. This is a group of dudes, 3 dudes, not 4 dudes. I said 4 last time. That was balls incorrect. 3 dudes. We got T.O., Premise, and Maze. They all got a slew of nicknames. T.O. goes by Mr. Stir the Pot. Premise goes by Ya Favorite Cousin. And Maze goes by Uncle Daddy. And I sound like the whitest motherfucker ever reading these things. Anyways, yeah, Uncle Daddy. Daddy with an I and an E. And Uncle with a K. It's different.
It is.
So anyways, their first episode's titled T.O.'s Black Card, in which Maze and Premise ridicule T.O. for things that they should have done or experienced as a black man. It's a pretty good episode. I would definitely go check it out. So right now, the group, they have a Facebook page and a YouTube, and they're looking to get into audio. and we actually might be helping them with that. We'll see. But you can go over to facebook.com/BNT podcast to take a listen to them. And their podcast is pretty similar to what we do. So we just, they're a bunch of dudes talking about their lives and talking about things that happen. And they really take pride on not being politically correct because they feel that nothing should be sugar-coated. So definitely go check them out. Go check out the website. And we're also taking applications for 2 podcast hosts for the network to produce shows for. We're producing 2 more shows over the course of the next couple months. I think we're going to choose an applicant, or 2 applicants, I should say, by the end of the month. So head over to the website, check that out. And thanks for coming. Let's get back to the cast.